Seongyeom is a lonely sprinter who only knows how to chase finish lines, not feelings. However, everything changes when he meets a girl with zero filter who refuses to stay out of his life. Now, the athlete who spent his whole life running finally starts falling in love with her. The story begins when Miju gets into a clash with Professor Huang, her college professor, in the midst of Han, her ex, and other colleagues, because he believes she only gets gigs because of her pretty face. In the heat of the argument, Huang's wig falls into her hand, and she leaves with it in annoyance. On her way home, she runs into Seongyeom, causing the contents of her bag to spill to the ground, including a lighter shaped as a gun. This gun makes Seongyeom give her a questioning look, but she has no time to explain and just hides behind him because Han is also chasing after her. When Han gets to her and tries to convince her to return to apologize to Huang, she refuses, and Seongyeom threatens him with the gun to leave her alone. While this is happening, fireworks erupt, and both Miju and Han disperse, thinking it was the gun, leaving only Seongyeom behind. The next day, Miju returns to Huang's office to apologize for the wig situation and with the hope of getting a new gig. Still, she only aggravates him further, so she meets Mei, her friend and housemate, for advice, and Mei advises that they go to Huang's house with a gift. So Miju and Mei return to Huang's house that night with gifts, and Miju starts to apologize profusely, pleading with him to consider her for any interpreting gig he has available because it will further boost her career. So right after Miju and Mei leave, Huang calls Assemblyman Jungdo, who happens to be Seongyeom's father, to inform him that he has found the perfect candidate who can help his son with his upcoming off-season training. Meanwhile, Miju relieves stress by going to the nearest net cafe to play online games when she receives a text from one of her gaming buddies who asks about her welfare, and she lets him know about how she lost her lighter. The gaming buddy tells her he has a limited edition gun he is willing to sell, and Miju immediately shows interest. The next day, Miju meets with her buddy at a children's park, and she pays for the gun. She is about to test the gun when the guy pulls a fast one by snatching it from her and running away with it. Immediately, Miju starts to chase after him. Nearby, Seongyeom is receiving a call from Dana, his agent, to notify he will soon get to her when he sees Miju suddenly run past him. He hangs up the call and asks Younghwa, a passerby, for his drawing tube and uses it to hit the guy. The guy falls, giving Miju time to retrieve her weapon, call the cops, and begin to cuss out the guy who has now fainted due to the hit. As this is going on, Younghwa quietly retrieves his drawing tube, but is caught by Miju, who asks if he was the one who threw the bottle, and he quickly clears himself and drags Seongyeom to her to show he is responsible. Miju thanks Seongyeom, and Seongyeom tells her not to mention him if the cops arrive because he could get himself in a pickle and turns to ask if Younghwa is okay too. Seeing that he does not have to pay for any damages, he proceeds to leave, but he is stopped by cops who have just arrived. The cops think the gun is real, making Miju quickly turn to Seongyeom for defense, and that is how they end up in the station writing statements about the incident. After Miju and Seongyeom finish writing their statements and leave, it is late already, and Seongyeom can no longer meet with Dana, making Miju feel bad, so she offers to treat him to dinner as a means of apology, but Seongyeom collects her number instead. Miju asks why he helped her earlier, but he curtly replies that he has no reason, causing Miju to look at him weirdly. After they depart, Miju returns home and receives a call for a potential gig, so she meets with Dana the next morning, who begins to question her because she is pissed she was not in charge of picking an interpreter for Seongyeom. While still discussing, Seongyeom walks in to meet them, and that is when Miju discovers Seongyeom is the person she will be interpreting for and immediately thinks it must be fate. However, Seongyeom thinks Miju is doing another arms deal with Dana, and Miju quickly introduces herself as his interpreter to clear the misconception. She offers him a handshake, but he just tells her he still has her lighter. Hearing about a lighter, Dana asks if they are smoking buddies, and Seongwon questions if it is a bad thing. Dana just tells him to keep it off the news and informs Miju to excuse them, promising to get her manager to email Seongwon's schedule to her. After Miju leaves, Dana asks Seongwon about her relationship with Miju because they seem cordial from their conversation, and Seongwon just tells her to stop being nosy about his private life. Seeing this as an opening, Dana shows Seongwon the rumor of him dating a famous actress, Terry. He does not recognize the actress at first, but after Dana introduces her as the person he did a shoot with recently, he immediately explains that their encounter was definitely a mere coincidence and excuses himself to go for training. On his way back, Seongwon bumps into Miju, who is hoping they have the meal he promised her the day before, and she asks about the rumor, which he denies. Miju begins to lament about how Terry has already denied the relationship, but people online are calling him Terry's boyfriend instead of his real name, considering he is also a national athlete. Confused about Miju's outrage, Seongwon asks if Miju is trying to get on his good side, and she nods in reply, but he just finds it weird because he is used to being linked with other people's names. He excuses himself and promises to text her for a convenient date they can eat together before leaving. The next day, Miju is discussing with May about work when she receives a text from Seongwon about the dates he will be free for a meal. May teases her about who she is texting and warns her not to get pregnant. Miju then informs May about Seongwon, and that is when Miju discovers he is from a famous family. His mother is Miju's favorite actress, leaving her in shock. His sister is a famous golfer, and he is notably known for getting second place in a competition. That night at the training center, Seongwon receives a call from his coach to meet with him, and on the way, he sees some of his colleagues bullying their junior, Woo-sik, and runs to his aid. Seongwon takes Woo-sik to the hospital and tells him not to worry that he will handle his bullies. Shortly after, he returns to the training center to confront both Gyeok and Gibeom and give them the beating of their lives, after which he goes to report himself to his coach and assistant coach, suggesting they summon the disciplinary committee because it will also help Woo-sik's case, but they sweep it under the rug, leaving him frustrated. The next morning, Dana walks into a cafe to get coffee, and she sees Miju, who is working on a translation gig, pretending to be asleep to hide from her. Dana knows she is pretending and goes to tease her, but Miju stands to excuse herself to use the restroom just as the waiter calls for her to get her coffee, so she tells Miju she will see her on the work trip. On her way out, Dana sees a painting that captivates her, hung on the wall, and decides to buy it. As Dana is leaving in her car, Youngwoo walks into the cafe to drop off another one of his paintings and sees that one of his paintings is gone. The waiter is trying to explain to him when Miju returns from the restroom and immediately recognizes him because of his drawing tube, so they exchange pleasantries. Meanwhile, Dana arrives at her office to see Seongwon waiting for him. She immediately notices the bruise on his face and he explains his predicament. She laughs after hearing, and he explains how his colleagues beat up their junior to the point that he will need surgery simply because he beat them in a tournament. She understands where he is coming from, but she thinks his sponsorships and deals will suffer for it, so she begins to plan how they can overcome the saga and tells him not to worry, even though Seongwon just wants to serve his punishment. Seongwon leaves Dana's office only to be stopped by Terry's agent, who accuses him of using Terry as a stepping stone for his career, but Seongwon denies the relationship. Terry's agent is hell-bent on proving him wrong, but it takes Seongwon notifying him that his car is being towed for him to get off him. Miju, on the other hand, is on her way back home because Seongwon refused to turn up for their outing when she sees him run past her at the speed of light. She immediately calls him on the phone to let him know he has just passed her, so he runs back to meet her and apologizes for being late. During their meal, Miju explains to Seongwon how her job works and asks him about how he got very good at throwing, referring to the drawing tube situation, and she realizes that he used to be a javelin thrower before becoming a sprinter. He also explains that he rarely ends up in situations where he has to control his anger, but he contradicts himself because Miju can see he was involved in a fistfight, so he apologizes. And his logic makes Miju laugh and ask if people ever find him weird. He, however, replies that people find him annoying instead. Moments after, Terry runs into Seongwon, who is waiting for Miju and the driver who will take him home, and she thinks Seongwon intentionally wants to meet with her, so she begins to talk about how she already has a boyfriend. While still explaining, Terry's agent joins them and begins to accuse Terry of being with him again, and Terry begins to explain herself. This does not help Seongwon's situation, as he is already drunk from his outing with Miju and thinks they are too loud, but Miju comes to his rescue. This only aggravates Terry's manager further because he now thinks Seongwon is cheating on Terry while Miju just watches them in confusion. Fed up with the situation, Seongwon grabs Miju and kisses her, shocking everyone present, and tells Terry and her agent that Miju is his girlfriend. Immediately, Miju asks if Seongwon is crazy, but he just smiles, says he is serious, and slumps on her shoulder just as the driver he requested arrives. The next morning, Seongwon wakes up and finds himself in Miju and May's apartment, so he greets them and asks to use the restroom. After he washes up, he returns to the living room in outfits Miju and Mei usually spread on their balcony to keep them safe from men, just in time for breakfast, and thanks them for their hospitality. During breakfast, Seongwon apologizes to Miju for kissing her yesterday, catching Mei by surprise, but Miju dismisses it, telling him it was just a peck and asks what brand of lip balm he uses because it tasted nice. Seongwon replies that he will have to check because he just uses whatever. After breakfast, Miju escorts Seongwon out and begins to yap about how she would love to drive her car, so he allows her. She drives him to the hospital so he can see Woosik, but they first make a stop to get a stuffed doll, and Seongwon wonders why they just don't buy one instead of playing a game for it, but she claims winning it is more fun. On the way out, Dana's manager, Jeong, sends a text message to Miju concerning the upcoming work trip, and she takes permission from Seongwon to leave. So Seongwon thanks her for driving him and getting the stuffed doll, but advises her not to ever get a car because she is a terrible driver. Miju laughs in response and asks Seongwon why he kissed her the day before, because that is the reason why she decided to tag along with him. Seongwon explains he only did that to avoid the situation, and she just happened to be there at the moment. This response annoys Miju so much that she leaves in annoyance. Soon afterward, Seongwon visits Woosik at the hospital to check on him. He gives him the doll and asks about his health, but Woosik is more concerned about Seongwon since he got into a fight because of him and may be in trouble for it, but Seongwon tells him not to worry. He will be retiring soon anyway, and he has money, so he is less worried about the repercussions. Meanwhile, Miju is working on the interview questions Seongwon will be asked during the work trip and sees that most of the questions are not related to him directly, so he puts a call through to Jeong to raise the issue. After the call, she does not believe she is actually trying to help Seongwon because she is still angry about the response he gave her earlier. The next day, Seongwon and his sister, Eunbi, go to their parents' anniversary event when Eunbi sees a poster of their father on the way and begins to complain about how their father always loves to put them on display during election periods. When they arrive, they take pictures with their parents, and Seongwon goes in to greet his favorite housekeeper. Miju, on the other hand, is working on translating a new movie when she sees Seongwon's parents' anniversary picture trending. She immediately remembers when Seongwon told her that he is used to being linked with others, and she suddenly feels bad for him. As this is going on, Seongwon has lunch with his family, but it soon turns sour when Jungdo begins to compare him to Eunbi. Jungdo is angry that he got into a fight during his campaign season and tells him that he will have to settle the disciplinary committee to sweep it under the carpet. However, Seongwon tells Jungdo not to do that and lets him serve his punishment, but this only pisses Jungdo off, so he throws his glass cup at Seongwon, hurting his face in the process. Seongwon leaves immediately because he does not want to ruin the lunch any further. After Seongwon leaves, Jungdo turns to accuse his mother, Jiwoo, of not raising him well, but Jiwoo just scoffs and tells him that if she had done that, she would have been Mother of the Year and not Queen of the movie world, leaving Jungdo flustered. Eunbi, who is also watching the whole drama unfold, just shakes her head because that is how their anniversary lunch always ends in a mess. The time for the disciplinary committee finally arrives, and both Gudyeok and Gibeon tell the panel that Seongwon only taught them a lesson because they were slacking off, and they apologize to him. But Seongwon senses foul play because of the way the panel is siding with them and telling him not to make a big deal out of it. Jungdo must have settled them, so he storms out. Simultaneously, Miju meets with Jungdo because she received a call that Jungdo wants to meet with her. Jungdo thanks her for taking the job, tells her to report everything Seongwon does during the course of the trip to him, and gives her money. This does not sit right with Miju, but she collects the money. The next day, Miju begins her job as Seongwon's interpreter and sits in with him for the interview he is taking alongside Eunbi, but during the course of the interview, Miju notices the interviewer is only asking Eunbi questions, and she confronts her about it, especially since she already spoke with Jeong about the issue. As this is going on, Seongwon whispers to Eunbi that Miju is cool, and Eunbi tells him to treat her well because she is looking out for him. Later that day, the rest of Seongwon's team arrives for the off-season training, and to kick off the training, they will be running in front of the dignitaries, Jungdo included. So, when they are getting ready for the race, Seongwon spots Jungdo talking to his coach, Gudyeok, and Gibeon. He approaches him to confirm his suspicion, but Jungdo tells him not to cause a mess because many people are watching. But Seongwon sees this as a perfect opportunity to misbehave because when the time for the race starts, he refuses to join the others in the race and remains at the start line. After he sees that he has gotten everybody's attention, he goes to meet the reporters and tells them that the reason he did not join the race is that he assaulted his colleagues. This news shocks the reporters while he looks at Miju and tells her to translate. Miju thinks he is crazy, but she goes ahead and translates his speech. Shortly after, the reporters spot Woosik in his bandages, and they go to meet him to ask if he is the one Seongwon was referring to. Woosik begins to defend Seongwon, but before he can continue his explanation, his coach interrupts him to address the reporters while the rest of his colleagues escort him out of the place. As this is going on, Seongwon parks his load calmly while Miju begins to panic, and they are both interrupted by Jungdo, who walks in on them and starts to accuse Miju of interpreting all of Seongwon's words. Seongwon tries to calm him, but Jungdo turns to him and begins to lament about how Seongwon is messing up his growing political career. Frustrated, Seongwon begins to talk about how Jungdo has always determined his life choices for him, and he is tired of living his life to please him, so he should let him do what he wants. This statement makes Jungdo very angry, so he slaps him and tells him to get lost. Seongwon leaves, and Miju follows suit. On their way out, they bump into Dana, who notices his face and tells him not to cause trouble anymore and just lay low for the time being. He leaves with Miju, but Dana is displeased by this. Before Dana can say anything, they see Jungdo coming, so both Miju and Seongwon see this as their cue to leave. After they left, Jungdo tells Dana to bring Miju to him, and that is when Dana discovers that Miju had collected money from Jungdo. However, she scolds Jungdo for getting Seongwon an interpreter without informing her and assures him that she will take care of the situation as nicely as possible. So shortly after her discussion with Jungdo, she gathers the reporters and invites Woosik to tell them what really transpired. Meanwhile, Seongwon and Miju go out for lunch, and Miju discovers that Seongwon may get kicked out of his team because of the incident, and she feels bad for him. Seongwon, on the other hand, feels pretty chilled about it, and the only thing he worries about is that he will not be able to coach the school team he promised to coach, since he did not retire himself, and this makes Miju have a soft spot for him. On the way back, Miju begins to read out articles about the incident to Seongwon, and she is mad at how Seongwon is so calm about it because she believes he is always empathetic to others and not himself. She even asks if she did not learn to love himself while in school, and he said he skipped classes because of training, so she just focused her attention on the road. When they return to the hotel they are staying at, Jungdo's personal assistant approaches Miju with a plane ticket to return because Jungdo is upset with her, but Miju refuses and returns the money Jungdo gave her the other day, and as Jungdo's personal assistant leaves, Seongwon and Dana approach her. Dana tells her she will need her to interpret for Woosik's interview with the reporters and throws a shade at her for collecting money from Jungdo before leaving. Hearing that Miju will interpret for Woosik, Seongwon takes her to a separate room to talk. He tells her not to interpret if Woosik mentions that he assaulted his colleagues to save him. But Miju tells him he is acting like this because he is used to being hurt, and she is not going to accept his request. She is about to continue lashing at him, but is interrupted and called for the interview, so she excuses herself and goes to interpret for Woosik while Seongwon watches them from afar. After the interview and the reporters leave, Seongwon enters to greet Miju, but she excuses herself by lying that she has a flight to catch. But Seongwon runs after her and offers to take her to the airport. She declines and proceeds to leave. Seongwon stops her again and asks if she likes him, and she says she does before leaving him standing there. The next day, Jungdo does a press conference on behalf of Seongwon to apologize for his wrongdoings, while Seongwon parks his load and looks at the training center one last time. Miju, on the other hand, is on her way to meet Dana for her payment, and she checks her phone to see if Woosik's side of the story has been published, but nothing comes up, so she tries to text him, but she cannot bring herself to press send. A few minutes after she meets with Dana, Dana asks why she took the job in the first place, and she said it is because she pities Seongwon. This revelation amuses Dana, and she asks her why she would feel like that. She tells Dana to look in the mirror, so she just tells her not to let Seongwon find out she collected a bribe because he hates it. Miju wonders why she is concerned about Seongwon, and Dana replies that it's been ages since he liked someone, and she was the last person he liked, leaving Miju very shocked. This statement bothers her so much that when she leaves Dana, she immediately calls Seongwon to tell him she would like to meet with him in person and collect her lighter. Seongwon tells her that he is at the hotel, and she tells him she will meet him there. When she gets there, the first thing she does is to shade him for staying in a hotel room out of all the places he could stay, but he just asks if Jungdo paid her. Shortly after Seongwon leaves the training center for his hotel, he runs into Jiwoo, who is going to use the gym in the hotel, and they exchange pleasantries. After she leaves, Jungdo's personal assistant tells him to be careful because of the reporters, and he asks about Miju. He discovers that Jungdo paid Miju. So when Seongwon asks Miju during her visit, he already knows, and Miju also does not deny it. But instead of getting angry, he lets her know that he cherished the times they spent together. Miju asks why he is being so kind to her, and he replies that he just wants to and smiles. Miju, however, is displeased by this and begins to rant about how he makes her feel pitiful at times. So he returns her lighter, tells her not to forget the times they shared, and because she does not even have the strength to argue, she accepts and leaves while he watches her go. The next day, Seongwon visits the school he intended to coach after retiring and begins to practice with the kids there. The kids ask about his involvement in the assault case, and he does not deny it, but they think he is lying because he has a cool personality. After he is done with them, the head teacher tells him to stop coming to the school because the management and parents have shown their disapproval of him mentoring their kids. He understands where they are coming from and suggests he would like to keep sponsoring the students if she doesn't mind, even if it has to be under a different name, and the teacher agrees. Meanwhile, Miju meets with Huijin, a producer and friend at the cafe, to discuss work. Huijin tells Miju about the problem she's been facing concerning finding an interpreter for the American indie producers filming in their town, and she mentions how Miju used to be in the movie club while in college, hoping Miju will want the work. But Miju does not remember telling her this, and Huijin replies that she overheard Han talking about the club being where they first met one day, and it pissed Miju off. Miju is so angry that she goes to May's office to lament to her, and May just tells her to calm down, so she sits and opens her phone only to see that one of her old friends from college, Gongju, is getting married soon and immediately says she is not going, but May knows that she is going to go even though she argues against it. However, that weekend, Miju dresses up to go for a catch-up with Gongju and her other friends from college at a lounge, and on the way, she checks to see if the interview with Woosik has been posted online, but she finds nothing yet. When she gets there, Gongju begins to shade her single status by asking when she will get married, but instead of answering the question, she asks Gongju for the reason why she is getting married. Gongju does not come up with a reasonable answer and instead shades her for being an orphan as a counterattack. This hits home for her, but she smiles gracefully and excuses herself from the table. On her way out, she searches her bag and sees a cigarette pack May left inside. She contemplates smoking one stick and begins to look for a lighter when one of the security guards approaches her to tell her that smoking on the premises is prohibited. While still talking to the guard, Seongwon approaches them and tells the guard that Miju is with him, so the guard leaves them alone. Seongwon then grabs the cigarette stick from her and tells her to follow him, but Miju, who is still shocked to meet him there, asks if he was at the lounge too, and he nods. So Miju asks Seongwon why he came to meet her, and he replies that Woosik said he would like to treat both of them to a meal, and since he does not have her number, he asked him to relay the message to her. Miju declines, and Seongwon suggests that if she is uncomfortable with his presence there, he will not go, but she should not decline Woosik's offer because of him. So she tells him to text her Woosik's number. Miju proceeds to leave, and Seongwon says he wants to talk to her, and he only uses Woosik's offer as an excuse to keep the conversation going while Miju tells him that her reason for visiting the lounge is to meet some friends and not catch up with him. So she asks why he told her to follow her earlier, and he replies that he wanted to escort her to a smoking area, and she laughs because times like this make him fond of his weird personality. The next day, Miju is waiting at the restaurant Woosik told her to wait for him in, and sees Seongwon walk in. Shocked, they both ask each other what the other is doing there, and they later discover that Woosik set them up so that they can both reconcile their differences. During the meal, Miju tells him she is working on translating a movie project, and Seongwon tells her he has been disqualified from taking the coaching job. Miju feels sorry for him, and he continues to talk about his interest in coaching, stating that he wants to create an enabling environment where athletes can be able to grow. She tries to motivate him by referencing Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise's movie, but he has no idea what she is talking about because he has never watched the movie. Seongwon also talks about how boring he feels now that he has lost his job, and Miju tells him to call her if he is bored, stating she will hang out with him if she is not too busy with work. After their meal and on the way out, they see a poster congratulating Woosik on becoming a national athlete hung outside the restaurant, and Seongwon uses the opportunity to thank Miju for helping Woosik out. Miju tells him he found out Woo-sik is 20 years old, and it was around his age she met May, and her life became a bit better, so she decided to help him feel better, too. After they depart, Miju sees that the article regarding Woo-sik has been posted by foreign reporters, so she hurries home and begins to translate it so that everybody will be able to have access to it. She worked on the article overnight and posted it to every website she could find, and that is how the news becomes viral. When Woo-sik sees the article, he goes out in the rain to look for Woo-sik at the places where he thinks he can be, because he found out from the article that Woo-sik has decided to quit sports, but he doesn't find him, so he goes to Miju's place and asks if she already knew about Woo-sik's decision. She replies that she knows, but did not tell him because she knows it will break his heart, since the reason he did all this was to help Woo-sik continue the sport. So she hugs him to comfort him. Jung-do receives praises from his fellow assemblyman for choosing to apologize to the public even though he knew the full story. Jung-do then takes advantage of the situation and uses it as a means to campaign for himself. As this is going on, Dana also sends a text to Seongwon to ask about his well-being while at the hospital. Judeok and Gibeon are also being given the silent treatment by their colleagues. Seongwon, on the other hand, decides to sleep in all day and checks his text that evening to see texts from different people. He also sees that Woo-sik has sent him an apology text regarding quitting because he knows it will come as a shock to him. He drops his phone, remembers the comforting hug Miju gave him the night before, and sleeps off. The disciplinary committee decides in a meeting to send Judeok and Gibeon to the military for the time being and invites Seongwon to let him know that he has been suspended for 6 months, but he decides to retire on the spot instead because he believes the ruling is not fair, leaving the panel stunned. He returns to his hotel and sees reporters waiting for him, so he announces that he is checking out because he does not want to cause trouble for the establishment. On his way out, he calls Woo-sik to let him know he can stay at the hotel with his grandma for the time being, but Woo-sik respectfully declines because he still feels bad for quitting without telling him. Seongwon tells him not to think like that and continues to motivate him, only for a call from Dana to come in. In the meantime, Miju is at her usual spot at the cafe and tries to check on him by texting him, especially since she went in to give him an umbrella the other day, only to find out he had left already, but she does not know what message to send to him. As she is still trying to contemplate, Dana walks in to get coffee and sees Miju, so she goes to meet her. However, Miju does not have time for bickering and asks why Dana told her about Woo-sik liking him first. Dana claims she was just trying to be friendly, while Miju claims she thought they were in a love triangle, and this makes her laugh. Miju asks why Dana is trying to be friendly, and Dana replies that she wants to be her friend, but this just makes her shiver because she cannot imagine it, and tells Dana to excuse her. Dana returns to the waiter, and she sees another painting that catches her eyes, so she asks the waiter for the price. But the waiter suggests she speak with the painter directly, because the painter gave her the paintings for free. She declines her offer, orders her coffee, and turns to wink at a shocked Miju. Shortly after, Seongwon enters the cafe to meet with Dana while Miju tries to get his attention, but he does not see her. He asks why Dana wants to see him, and Dana informs him of his contract cancellation. She also tells him she heard he had left the hotel and wonders where he will be staying now, but Seongwon just tells her he just retired, catching Dana by surprise, and Miju, who is eavesdropping on their conversation, also. Dana suggests Seongwon stay with her, but he refuses, so she begins to convince him. Just in time, Miju stands from where she is sitting, and that is when Seongwon notices her for the first time since he entered the cafe. Miju suggests he stay with her instead, and both her and Dana begin to go back and forth concerning their offers for Seongwon, leaving him out totally. When Dana walks out of the cafe, Miju follows her to accuse her of playing with people's emotions, and she claims she was just trying to help Seongwon out since he has no girlfriend, friend, agent, and his family is useless. So she thinks the best person he can stay with is Miju because Miju cares for him. This statement makes Miju speechless, so, after Dana finally leaves, she begins to complain about how she let Dana get to her. Just in time, Seonghwan walks out, and Miju asks if he ever dated Dana, and he tells her no. So she decides to tag along by following him in his car to get to her place, but she stops when she sees May's assistant Mijoo alighting from the cab with boxes. Seongwon helps her with one of the boxes, and they go to the 3rd floor of the cafe, which happens to be May's office. May questions Miju for bringing Seongwon first to their house and now her office, and she explains that she only just met him outside. Seeing this as an opportunity, She begins to complain about how Seongwon checked out of his hotel and has nowhere to stay. So-mei tried to convince him to stay at their place by lying that a guy has been terrorizing their street and robbing women lately and offers he stay to protect them at their place, even promising to give him their biggest room, but Seongwon respectfully declined. He takes Miju home, returns the outfit she gave him the last time he slept over at his place, and lets her know he will be staying in a different hotel. But when he gets to the hotel, he finds it boring. The next day, he meets with the head teacher, who apologizes on behalf of the management and asks if he can return to coaching the team. But he declines and tells her that he will recommend a more qualified person to them. So after the meeting, he calls one of the support staff at Dana's agency, Director Dong, to help him find Coach Bang, his coach when he was younger, and Dong assures him that she will get to it. Later that evening, Miju finds him in her street, and he tells her that he is patrolling the place in case the mugger shows up, but Miju knows it is a flimsy excuse and asks him for the real reason he is around. So he asks if the offer for him staying at her place is still available. She nods in response and tells him to follow her to her place. Seongwon gets to the place only to find out the big room he will be sleeping in is the living room because the other rooms present belong to Mijoo and Mei, and he feels scammed, but he has no other option. The following day, he goes to the store to get some stuff and runs into Younghwa. He does not recognize him at first, but Younghwa introduces himself, and he immediately remembers and greets him. They get their stuff together, and he promises to pay. This gesture touches Younghwa so much that he begins to address him as his elder brother. On returning home, Seongwon realizes that Miju has been working overnight, and after washing up, he goes to meet her in her room to see the project she is working on. She explains how translating a movie works to him, and after she is done, she tells him to leave. On the way out, he complains about how she is not making time for him, so the next morning, she joins him for his morning jogging. Then, a few days later, Miju sees him walking in with cartons of alcoholic drinks and finds out that he is visiting his old coach and accepts his offer to follow him. They visit Bong at her secluded apartment, and over a meal, he asks her to take up the coaching offer, but she declines. A drunk Miju pipes in and asks the reason why she is declining, but Bong just tells him to take her out. So he takes her to the car and tells her that he is going to look around for a space they can sleep in, but she grabs him and tells him not to go, so he asks if there is anything she needs. She asks him to like her, and he tells her he already does. The next morning, Bong wakes them up from Seongwon's car for breakfast, and they go in to eat. She pats Seongwon's head during the meal, and he remembers how she always did that when she was younger. He also remembers the time he saw her beating up his coach and eventually quitting, so he asks why she beat up the coach. She replies that she was forced out of the field, and she pities the students the other coach is training presently. Miju senses the tension and lies to Bong that the kids Seongwon intends for her coach are starting training soon, so she should join them, especially because she would like to see her in action too. And she says she will consider it. When they return, Miju meets with Huijin at the cafe, and Huijin begs her to be the interpreter for the movie she earlier told her about, and she agrees, which makes Huijin very grateful that she gives her 2 tickets to see a movie premiere. Huijin also tells her to bring Mei along, so she goes to Mei's office to deliver the news and also gives her the movie ticket. Mei suggests she give it to Seongwon instead, and she informs Mei that Seongwon does not like movies, which Mei finds extremely weird. Seongwon, on the other hand, returns to his parents' house to get new clothes and is stopped on the way out by Jungdo, who asks him to return to his team after his 6-month suspension, but he declines. Seongwon then tells him to marry Donna, and he declines again because he knows Jungdo wants to use it to enhance his political career since Donna's father is in power, and leaves. That evening, he returns to Miju's apartment and tells Miju that Bong has decided to come for the training and asks if she will come, and she said she will make it. She also informs him that she will be leaving the house for a work trip the following week, and this makes Seongwon sad because he will miss her presence. Shortly after, Younghwa is on his way home from getting snacks when he sees Seongwon sitting by the roadside looking sad, and he decides to join him. He talks about how he was not aware that Seongwon is a national athlete and his mother is a famous actress until he looked him up online. So he offers him soda, and after talking for a while, he takes him to his apartment. At his place, Younghwa offers Seongwon beer and asks him about his mission in the neighborhood. Seongwon replies that he will be leaving very soon because he does not want to stay alone. He begins to explain how his current place feels like home, and Younghwa empathizes with him. Shortly after, he sleeps off, and Younghwa cleans up after him. Meanwhile, Miju is searching for Seongwon in the house, and Mei asks if she has texted him, and Miju replies that she texted him a few times, but he keeps ignoring her. Miju considers reporting to the cops, and Miju tells her it is not even up to 24 hours and reminds her that he is an adult who is capable of finding his way home, so she should not worry. The next morning, Seongwon returns home with a bottle of honey that Yonghwa gave him as a farewell gift, only to meet Miju waiting for him. Miju sees that Seongwon is okay and wonders why he went out after their discussion yesterday. Seongwon replies that he fell asleep while drinking with someone, but refuses to tell her who the person is. This makes her angry, and she walks to her room, comparing him with Winnie the Pooh because of the honey. Later that morning, he makes breakfast for them, but she refuses to acknowledge it, and after that every time he tries to talk to her, he ignores her. Mei walks in and sees him knocking on her door just in time for her to open it and tell him to stop knocking because she is disturbing her sleep. Seongwon quickly uses the opportunity to tell her that Bong will be coming the next day and asks what time she would like to leave. She just tells her to text him the departure time that she will meet him there instead and close her door back. Mei asks him if they fought, and he innocently replies that he thinks he upset her, but she is not hearing him out. Mei tells him he just lost his chance. The next day, Seongwon begins to train the students in front of Bong and Miju, who are eating and watching him in action. Soon after, Miju starts to mimic him out of spite, and Bong asks if they fought. Miju replies that they did not. She is just acting out and wonders if Seongwon knows the reason behind her action. Bong tells her she can relate, and they continue to catch up until Bong joins him to address the students. After the training, Seongwon and Miju start to pack, and Seongwon apologizes for not returning her texts as he saw them after he woke up the next morning. This is the first time he will live with someone, so he did not know he was supposed to text her to let her know he would be out all night. Miju lets him know how worried she was. She is also mad that he refused to tell her who he spent the night with, so she leaves angrily, even though Seongwon offers to take her. That evening, she calls Mei to tell her she is waiting for her at the cinema, only to see Seongwon coming, and she realizes that Mei has given her ticket to Seongwon. She scoffs and asks why he is there, and Seongwon is too shy to tell her he wants to go on a date with her, so he just says they should watch the movie together. Miju reluctantly agrees and tells Seongwon they are not reconciling just yet, she is just trying to be polite. On the way to watch the movie, they run into Jiwoo, and Miju becomes starstruck. Seongwon introduces Miju as Jiwoo's fan, and just as Jiwoo is greeting her, Jungdo walks up to them and asks why Miju is still following Seongwon after their contract has ended. Seongwon answers for both of them and tells his father that he is there to watch a movie with her and Jungdo to stop being intimidating. Jungdo, in return, tells him to keep it chill because people are around. Miju gets the memo and tells Jungdo she will leave, but as she is going, she turns to Seongwon, grabs his hand, and tells him to follow her to watch the movie. As they walk out, Seongwon smiles at the gesture. Jungdo is angry at Miju for acting like that and wants to go and confront her, but Jiwoo calms him down and tells him to follow her instead because people are watching. Miju and Seongwon, on the other hand, go to watch the movie together, and just as the movie is starting, Seongwon thinks it is the perfect opportunity to start small talks, but Miju calls him to order so as not to anger the other viewers. After the movie ends, they run into Yonghwa, who is upset from seeing a movie earlier, in the lobby, and Miju is shocked to see that they know each other. She also finds out that Seongwon slept over at Yonghwa's place, and the only reason Seongwon kept it a secret was that he thought she would have forgotten about him. Seongwon offers to take Miju out for a drink, and Yonghwa decides to tag along even though Seongwon doesn't want him to. So during the drink, Miju and Yonghwa begin to bond over their shared love for the movie while Seongwon watches them like a spectator. After the meal, and they are on their way back home, Seongwon offers to take her on her work trip, but she declines. So, the next morning, as Miju and Mei are parking for their trip, Seongwon hands them packed meals he woke up early to prepare, and even though the gesture touches Miju, she pretends not to be touched and just tells him they are leaving Seongwon worried. After they leave, Seongwon goes to Dana's agency to thank Dong with gifts for linking him up with Bong. Dong appreciates the gesture and tells him of the rumor she heard about Bong returning to coach a team, and she is sure it's his doing. She also tells him he has a natural gift of motivating people, and he just does not know it yet. While still discussing, Dana walks in to join them. She tells Seongwon to marry him because her father keeps setting her up for blind dates, and since Seongwon used to like her, she feels it is a good decision, but Seongwon tells her he never liked her, and he wonders why she keeps saying that. Dana replies that she thought he did, claims he led her on, and tells her to just use the opportunity to marry him, but Seongwon finds her reasoning illogical. Seongwon returns home and finds everywhere boring, and he begins to take care of the whole house to pass the time. Meanwhile, Mei and Miju arrive at the movie set only to find the living conditions of their hotel unbearable, so they improvise and pass the night. The next morning, Seongwon visits Jiwoo's movie set, and they offer him a role, but he declines. During the visit, Jiwoo talks about how Eunbi was generous enough to send her a truck coffee and wonders why Seongwon is not doing that because he is broke now that he is unemployed. She asks if he should send him money, but Seongwon just questions why she is not scolding him for being unemployed. Jiwoo explains that she can never criticize him because he has always been a good kid who always listens to her instructions right from when he was young, and she does not take it for granted. Seongwon promises to bring a coffee truck next time he comes, and she tells her to bring Miju along because she likes her. Speaking of Miju, Seongwon asks why she married Jungdo, and she said because he loved him, but they are not really on good terms like before. Miju, on the other hand, continues her tedious work of trying to get what James, the foreign producer, is saying regarding the movie production and pass it on to the rest of the team. But shortly after, the producer calls her to complain because the team got some of the things he wants wrong. Miju apologizes and tells him to try to slow down next time so he can get what he is saying next time, and he agrees. After they finish that evening and are sitting down to make accounts, Miju feels sick but tries to dismiss it, only for one of the producers to walk in and begin to scream at them that a driver be provided for James. After she left, Miju thinks Seongwon will be perfect for the role, and she calls him to ask if she could come down to their station the next morning, and she agrees. However, the next morning, Miju is too sick to go to work, so she tries to get a cab only to find out none is available at the moment. So she treks to the hospital and calls Mei on the way to cover up for her. When she gets to the hospital, she is administered, and as she is about to sleep, two women try to engage her in a conversation, but she declines. Just as she is about to sleep back, another person interrupts her, only to find it is Seongwon. Surprised, Miju asks why he is in the hospital, and he replies that he is just acting on Mei's orders. She begins to cry and tells him that seeing him brings her comfort because she is in a lot of pain. Seongwon asks what he can do to ease her pain, and she tearfully complains about how the two women keep talking to her. So he excuses himself and goes to talk to them so that they will stop disturbing her and she can sleep peacefully. After she finishes resting at the hospital, Seongwon returns her to the place she is staying for her work trip, and he is displeased by the condition of the place. So when she introduces him to the rest of the team, and he waits for them to finish their meeting, he meets with Huijin and Mei, and politely asks if he can help them move to a more decent place to stay, and they are shocked. Shortly after, Seongwon moves Miju to a better room to rest in and begins to take care of her. While he is caring for her, she begins to call out Mum in her sleepy state. Since her mother is no longer alive, Seongwon encourages her to call his name instead because he will always be there for her from now on, so she calls his name but complains about how hard it is to pronounce his name. Seongwon, on the other hand, ignores her, continues to watch her with care and hold her hand while she slowly falls asleep. That is the end of today's video. If you stayed until now, comment down below, Slow Burn Romance for Part 2. Hit the like button and subscribe for more K-drama recaps like this. See you in the next one.